Infor Track reduction set setup. Reduction sets are used to define lunch and break schedules for shifts. We can specify whether breaks are to be entered manually or automatically deducted, whether to redirect break time to indirect tasks, whether to include or exclude breaks from absence hours, and whether to include breaks in clocked hours on partially worked days. To create a reduction set, we need to select the reduction set icon from the administrator homepage. The value in the reduction set field is the ID code that is used by the application to refer to a specific collection of reductions. Description is a qualitative description for the group of reductions within the reduction set. The configuration points in a reduction set are as follows. The type. Normal is presently the only type developed for TimeTrack. Function. This identifies the type of transaction that we use to execute a reduction transaction. The alternatives are break, lunch, or clock. When the reduction is deemed as clockable, the function identifies the transaction to select on the transaction form to select the break, lunch, or to clock out. When reductions are not clockable, the selection of a function merely represents the label that will be used to denote it when an automatic reduction occurs. Start and end times are used to define the duration of the reduction. The reduction will be applied to any labour or absence hours that overlay the reduction start and end times. The elapsed time is calculated from the entry of the start and end times. The payroll timecode currently has no function in TimeTrack. Clockable indicates whether the employee will execute an attendance transaction to start and end the reduction, or allow TimeTrack to automatically reduce the time at the scheduled time. Start and end times are used to determine whether an in or an out transaction is on time. Transactions that are not within defined grace and tolerances will be flagged as exceptions. We use the task code to specify where to redirect paid reduction time. Labour time will be deducted from the reported direct or indirect task and applied to the indirect task code specified on the reduction record. There is little gain in redirecting reduction hours in clockable reductions or in unpaid reductions. As a result, the only recommended condition for redirecting reduction hours is for a paid unclocked reduction. The paid flag indicates whether or not attendance time is to be reduced along with the labour time. When the reduction is set to paid, the employee will be compensated for labour hours that occur during the reduction. Paid unclocked reductions should have a task code specified to redirect the reduction time from the labour time to an indirect task. Paid clocked reductions are used when an employee is expected to clock out for lunch, but should be paid if they do not clock out. If the employee clocks out, labour is not charged to any task and no attendance time is accumulated. The net result in this case is the break is actually unpaid. However, if the employee does not clock out, they will continue to be paid for the entirety of the time they are clocked in. Unpaid reductions automatically reduce labour and attendance time during the scheduled time of the reduction. The employee is not compensated for this time, no labour is charged to jobs during this time, and there's no point in attempting to redirect unpaid reductions to indirect tasks. Unpaid clockable reductions can result in an overstatement of reduction time when allow flexible lunch period is set to no. When allow flexible lunch period is set to no and the reduction is unpaid and clockable, labour and attendance time is reduced during the scheduled reduction. This results in an overstatement of reduction time if the reduction out transaction and in transactions do not start and end before and after the scheduled reduction time. Without allow flexible lunch period, the only scenario where unpaid clock reductions accurately account for time is when the reduction out and in transactions occur on time or within their configured tolerances. We set the allow flexible lunch period to yes for unpaid clockable reductions. In this configuration, if no reduction out transaction occurs, an attendance and labour time reduction automatically occurs at the scheduled time. However, if a reduction out transaction occurs, the automatic reduction is suspended, resulting in an attendance and labour reduction for the duration of time between the reduction out and in transactions. Confirm break is active in clockable reductions. Set it to yes to prompt the user if they attempt to clock out without entering a reduction out transaction. This allows the user to enter the reduction transaction, then enter the clock out transaction. Supervisor will still need to edit the times on the report date to get the reductions into the correct place, but these correcting entries will be simpler than if the employee had been allowed to clock out without entering the reduction transactions. Exclude Absences specifies whether or not the reduction should be applied to absence hours. When exclude absence is set to no, the reduction is suspended during absence hours. If it's set to yes, the reduction is deducted from absence hours. Finally, the active on partial day flag specifies whether reductions are taken during clock time on days with a partial day absence. When active on partial day is set to yes, clocked hours that occur on a day with a partial day absence during a scheduled reduction will be reduced by that reduction. If this parameter is set to no, the reduction will not be applied to clocked hours on a day with a partial day absence.